a scheme unfolds. Amina's plan had started to take root in her mind, and with each passing day, her determination solidified. She watched Lila from afar, her heart swelling with jealousy. The girl was not just beautiful, she was radiant, lighting up the entire village with her laughter and kindness. Villagers whispered sweet words about Lila's enchanting smile, and whenever Amina joined in their conversations, she felt more like a shadow than a woman of significance. The envy brewed darker in her heart until it became an obsession. One morning, while Lila was busy helping an elder woman in the village gather herbs, Amina saw her golden hair glistening under the sun, cascading like a waterfall down her back. It was then that the plan erupted forth with vivid clarity. Amina would not just cut Lila's hair, she would shave it off entirely, leaving no trace of the beauty that captivated everyone's heart. It was a calculated move. Without her hair, Lila would surely fade into the background, and Amina, filled with bitterness, would step forward to reclaim the villagers' admiration. That night, while Lila rested peacefully unaware of her stepmother's malicious intentions, Amina gathered the tools she needed, a sharp blade and a small mirror that had seen better days. The very thought of executing her sinister scheme stirred a mixture of excitement and dread within her. Would this brutal act truly silence the glowing praises of Lila? Would she finally occupy the pedestal that she craved? Amina felt a rush of exhilaration, but her heart twisted at the thought of how Lila would feel. She pushed those thoughts aside, convinced that greatness could only emerge from sacrifice. The following morning dawned bright and warm, casting a golden hue over the village as Amina made her move. She called for Lila in a seemingly innocent tone, masking her deceit beneath a practiced smile. Lila, ever trusting, entered the room eager to please her stepmother. Little did she know that her world was about to change. Amina gestured for Lila to sit, feigning concern for her hair's health, and began to stroke the soft strands lovingly. It was a facade that would quickly shatter. With each stroke, Amina whispered empty flattery, drawing Lila into a false sense of security. "You know, dear, sometimes beauty can be a burden," she said, her voice smooth like silk. As Lila listened, she felt a vague unease but brushed it off, believing Amina's words to be wise counsel. Before Lila could comprehend what was happening, Amina pounced, the blade glinting as she brought it to Lila's once glorious locks. The blade bit into the soft strands, and in that moment of horror, Amina relished the power she felt surge through her. Lila gasped, the sound ricocheting off the walls, but Amina's resolve was unyielding. She continued the brutal act, stripping Lila of her hair and her beauty one stroke at a time. In her wicked heart, Amina believed she was scripting a narrative where she would finally emerge as the heroine, but unbeknownst to her, fate had crafted something very different. As the last strands fell away, Lila's spirit remained untouched, and in that moment, a shift began that neither could foresee. The unthinkable act. Amina stared at Lila through the reflection in the mirror, her heart pounding as the oppressive silence filled the room. Scissors in hand, she had anticipated how this moment would unfold. Lila's tears, her shattered self-image, the look of betrayal that would etch itself on her face. Instead, Lila was smiling, her fingers running across her newly exposed scalp like she was tracing an uncharted territory. There was something infinite in that serene expression, a deep reservoir of strength that Amina had never expected to see. "Don't you see?" Lila said, her voice quiet yet firm as the air around them felt charged with an unexpected electricity. "I'm still me." Amina clenched her jaw, the satisfaction she had craved dissipating like smoke. What had she done? The cascading locks that once adorned Lila were just remnants of a battle that was now being fought in the living room, one where Amina was losing ground. Lila turned more fully to face her, the mirror now a barrier and a canvas for both. The bright overhead light shone on the curves of her face. Without the fall of hair to shield her, it was raw, unfiltered, and undeniably beautiful. Amina had always envied that, the effortless grace with which Layla carried herself, the way she could bask in her own glow. It had driven Amina to this moment, the desperate wish to cut Lila down to size, to ensure that she wouldn't eclipse her in their shared existence. But the realization clawed at Amina's insides now. Beauty could not be diminished by a simple act of cruelty. What was this really about for you? Lila asked, her tone striking a chord of curiosity rather than anger. Did you think taking my hair would take away my spirit? Amina's throat tightened as her thoughts spiraled. Was it about her spirit? Or had it always been about asserting control over the colorful world Lila inhabited? A world that seemed to grow brighter with every passing day? The truth was, Amina was terrified of being overshadowed, of being lost in the vibrant shadows of Lila's potential. I just thought, Amina stumbled over her own words, feeling the weight of the scissors slipping from her fingers as if they were no longer extensions of her will. The hair on the floor seemed to mock her, the triumphant evidence of her unthinkable act. I just thought you would care, more about how you look. But even as the words fell from her lips like lead weights, she knew they were hollow. They didn't convey the tumult behind her actions. For Lila, the moment was cathartic. Where once she had viewed herself through the lens of societal expectations, the drastic change had stripped her down to her essence. She felt free, floating above the weight of Amina's intentions. It's just hair, Amina. It grows back. But I have found something greater beneath it all. There was a finality in her words, a resolve that Amina found both intimidating and intriguing. Amina took a step back, the chaos in her heart swirling as she grappled with emotions too complex to fully comprehend. In this unexpected turn of events, Lila's resilience was not just a defiance to Amina's cruelty. It was an awakening for both, challenging the narrative they had woven around their lives. As Lila stood there, a beacon of self-acceptance, Amina felt something inside her shift, fractured yet hopeful, uncertain yet primed for transformation. A transformation begins. In the vibrant mornings that followed Lila's transformation, the village was awash with the sounds of laughter and camaraderie. The sun filtered through leaves, casting dappled shadows on the cobblestone paths. Lila seemed to draw the light closer to her, each step she took resonating with a confidence that was contagious. With her hair framing her face like golden strands of sunlight, she ventured into the market, where villagers would pause in their exchanges, admiring her like a rare flower that had suddenly bloomed amidst the ordinary. Each morning, Leela took up a task that was not her own. She helped old Mrs. Najib carry her heavy baskets filled with produce, her laughter echoing through the winding streets, lifting the spirits of all who heard. The villagers began to gather, sharing stories of Leela's kindness, her penchant for baking pies for the children, and her warmth that enveloped them like a summer breeze. With each act of service, the admiration poured in. They no longer saw Lila as a girl marked by loss. Instead, she became a beacon of fortitude. Many women, inspired by her resolve, would come to Lila seeking advice on overcoming their own struggles and insecurities. They found solace not just in her appearance, but in her words that resonated with experiences shared. Lila, once an easy target of ridicule, became a confidant, her inner strength radiating into the hearts of others. They began to find courage from the way she embraced her new self, transforming their own doubts into quiet confidence. Meanwhile, Amina watched from the shadows, her ire growing like a storm on the horizon. While she had once thought that her jabs might wound Lila, they had only forged her into a figure of reverence and admiration. The bitterness festered within Amina, a vine of jealousy that tightened around her heart. The more Lila thrived, the more Amina descended into her own darkness, consumed by the idea that the only solution was to orchestrate a more severe blow to Lila's newfound pedestal. But Amina's attempts to influence public opinion backfired. Her whispers, laden with intent yet fraught with desperation, only drew laughter and disdain from the villagers. They dismissed her grievances as the ramblings of someone who couldn't bear to see another succeed. The more time Amina spent plotting, the more isolation wrapped around her like a heavy shroud, causing her to question her own motives. Why did she allow such envy to take root? Was it truly Lila's beauty she despised? Or was it the happiness that seemed to elude her grasp? In moments of stillness, as she turned her schemes over in her mind, a sliver of uncertainty began to pierce her heart. A nagging thought whispered that perhaps the true measure of beauty lay not in a person's reflection, but in the kindness they showed to others. Each attempt to undermine Lila only highlighted the strength of spirit that the villagers had come to cherish. In those quiet moments, Amina felt the stirrings of regret, a bittersweet ember igniting beneath her treachery, mixing her motivations with confusion and longing to reclaim the joy she once knew. A change of heart. Amina sat in the shade of an ancient fig tree, its gnarled roots sprawling across the ground like forgotten memories. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful patterns of light and shadow around her. But instead of feeling comforted by the warmth of the day, a chill settled in her heart. Her hands trembled, with a mixture of resentment and loneliness, as she listened to the laughter wafting from the village square. It was a sound that had once filled her with joy, but now it served only as a bitter reminder of her isolation. The fragmented conversations of passersby reached her ears, and it was during one such moment that Amina's attention was caught by two villagers discussing Lila. Their voices were light, animated, and what they said seeped into Amina's mind like ink on paper. They spoke of Lila's kindness, recalling moments when she had helped an elderly woman carry her basket of vegetables or offered a warm smile to a child who had stumbled and fallen. Amina closed her eyes, picturing Lila's once vibrant face, now altered, yet still resonating with an undeniable warmth that seemed to ripple out into the world around her. It was then that the realization struck her like a thunderbolt, electrifying every nerve in her body. Lila was no longer just a rival in beauty. She was a beacon of compassion. Amina's heart constricted as she listened to the villagers recount tales of Lila using her transformed visibility to uplift others, rather than wallow in self-pity. A softness crept into Amina's hardened exterior, fleeting glimpse of something she had buried deep within herself: understanding. The bitter envy that had once colored her perception began to dissolve, revealing the reflection of her own insecurities beneath the surface. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as memories flooded back. She remembered when she had been kind, before her heart had twisted with jealousy, before she had sought affirmation through derision. The laughter of her friends had once echoed in her ears like music, but now it felt like a haunting reminder of her betrayal. It became clear to her that her cruelty had merely served to hide her own fears, the fear of not being enough, of not being loved. With a trembling heart, an unfamiliar resolve began to blossom within her. The faces of the villagers blurred in her mind's eye, and she could see them clearly now, not as spectators of her disdain, but as potential allies in her journey toward redemption. What if, instead of walling her heart off, she chose to open it? What if she sought forgiveness from Lila and the village, offering them the sincerity she had so recklessly withheld? Just then, the sun broke free from the clouds overhead, illuminating her path forward. Amina's breath quickened as she envisioned approaching Lila, her palms sweating at the thought of vulnerability. Yet for the first time in a long while, Amina contemplated a different narrative for herself, one where beauty stemmed not from flaunting outward appearances, but from nurturing inner kindness. A new chapter was waiting to be written, and Amina, in that moment of clarity, felt ready to embrace it, a new beginning. With their bond newly forged in the crucible of vulnerability and forgiveness, Amina found herself walking alongside Lila toward the heart of the village. It was a quaint place, with cobblestone paths winding through a tapestry of flourishing gardens and houses that spoke of a history rich in culture. The sun hung low in the sky, casting warm hues of orange and pink, mirroring the shift in Amina's heart. No longer did her thoughts dwell on the anger that had previously consumed her. Now she savored a sense of peace that felt both foreign and exhilarating. Their first project together was an initiative to restore the neglected community center that had once served as the vibrant hub of village life. The building, with its peeling paint and broken windows, had always been a physical manifestation of Amina's own feelings of despair. But as she and Lila began to brainstorm ideas, Amina felt an ember of inspiration reignite in her chest. They envisioned a place filled with laughter, creativity, and shared dreams, a sanctuary where people could come together to learn and grow. As the weeks passed, they reached out to the village's residents, sharing their vision and inviting them to join their efforts. Amina was taken aback by the response. Neighbors she once considered distant strangers rallied to the cause, bringing paint, tools, and enthusiasm. Lila's unwavering charisma drew out the best in people, infusing each meeting with high spirits and a palpable sense of unity. Amina watched in awe as friendships blossomed in the shared labor, each stroke of paint and hammer's strike weaving them closer. One afternoon, as the sun streamed through the once opaque windows, Amina stood back to admire their progress. The community center was beginning to transform, with bright colors sprucing up its previously dreary facade. Lila, covered in splashes of paint, approached her with a bright smile. "Look at what we've achieved together," Leela said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Amina nodded, but her heart was full of a different kind of revelation. It was no longer about the physical structure. The real change was happening within her. Amina had always been guarded, her bitterness shielding her from the warmth of connection. But here, among her neighbors, she found herself laughing, sharing stories, and truly engaging for the first time. The barriers she had built were beginning to crumble, replaced by a tapestry of shared experiences and laughter. Lila's friendship encouraged Amina to open her heart, and in doing so, she began to rediscover the radiant joy that kindness could bring. As projects expanded beyond the community center, Amina and Lila embraced their roles as beacons of inspiration. From organizing workshops for children to setting up markets for local artisans, their collaboration became a testament to the beauty of friendship. Villagers who had long avoided one another began to engage, proving that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple through the community. Amina was no longer just a participant. She was a leader, supporting others in their journeys of growth and healing. Through love, forgiveness, and collaboration, the village gradually thrived. Amina's once closed heart had blossomed open, revealing the vital truth that beauty lies not just in shared laughter, but also in the courage to seek connection and to embrace the transformative power of understanding.